Time for another edition of the online dinner party where we bring people from around the world and we have conversations and learn about what they've got going on. And all along those lines, I know one thing for sure: folks are following the Olympics, folks are following a number of other things, including some of the things taking place on the political landscape and all along those lines. And of course, people are paying attention to the weather because we had some winter weather here in North Carolina, and the last couple of days it's been feeling downright spring like. I just went outside and it was like in the 60s, even though it looked like it's some definitely overcast clouds and it might be some rain in the forecast over the next couple of days, but it does not feel like February. And of course, a lot of people were out there if they had a lady love celebrating Valentine's Day not that long ago, and all along those lines, because today is the 18th, so about 4 days ago, people were taking their folks out to dates or to concerts or to a number of other things that they might have been enjoying for that particular holiday. And of course, February is Black History Month, so a lot of people are noticing the folks that are historical, whether that be W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King. Of course, we just recently lost Jesse Jackson, and all along those lines. So definitely, there's a lot of folks that are reflecting even on the inventions from the African American culture and all along those lines. So lots going on in the world, and I've got two amazing guests. We're going to find out what they've got going on in their world and whether it is nice in their part of the world and what they've got going on from their perspective. And we might have some others join us as well, because we always bring in people that share what they've got going on and how they are doing and all along those lines. So I'm going to bring in my guest first, Paul Sherman, and we might have others join us as well. So we're going to see what he's got going on with his work that he's doing with The Last Audition and all in that space. So, Paul, how are you doing? We've got some other folks that are coming from the world of talent as well, including one that has moved here to North Carolina, where I'm at, because I'm in Durham, North Carolina, not that far from Duke University, and all along those lines. As a matter of fact, the apartments I live in are named after Duke, because I live in the Duke Manors and all in that space. But how are you doing today, and how is life treating you? Is it warm where you are? Because we're having 60-degree temperatures, and I think we had some 60s yesterday as well.
Mm. No, yeah, it's morning here in Adelaide, Australia. So it's summer. So we're actually summer going into spring, all right, because we're on the flip side of the world. But beautiful morning here, clean air, just gorgeous, and the temperatures are mild, although they have been up in like 80s, 90s. So it's been quite warm. It's starting to cool off a little bit here, but it's just a beautiful day here in Adelaide, Australia.
Adelaide, Australia.
So,
Well, Australia is
but
definitely
yeah,
on my bucket
yeah.
list and everything like that. Tell us a little bit about the last audition and some of the things that you're doing there in Australia, because I know that I found different guests through different sources and all along those lines. So I'd love to hear some of the things that you've got going
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. So the last audition is a play that I wrote. It's a solo one man show, and we're just starting here. Adelaide Fringe actually opens tomorrow, officially tomorrow, and it is my first Fringe. It's my first world tour. I'll be taking this from Australia to New York City, from New York City to Montreal, Canada, and then finally to Edinburgh, Scotland for the large Edinburgh Fringe Festival there. And so this is a last audition is about a play about a Shakespearean actor who comes on stage for an audition. That he thinks he has an audition, but he's dealing with some early onset of dementia, and his daughter's trying to put him into an assisted living home, and which he's resisting vehemently, and so he's yeah, struggling with that. It's a tender, heartwarming story. It's got humor. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, so we just did tech rehearsal yesterday, and opening up. We're doing a preview tonight, and then and opening up the Fringe Festival tomorrow. So yeah, it should be quite a ride. Quite a lot of performances around the world. I'm looking forward to it. So
It sounds like it's going to be quite a ride. I know that I've got friends that are in various forms of entertainment, including one that'll be joining us very shortly and everything along those lines. And some of the things we oftentimes talk about is the importance of entertainment to bring issues to the forefront. And it sounds like that's what you're doing with this. So imagine part of it is talking about kind of what's going on with dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So how important do you think it is for artists to use the platform to address these important issues?
Well, I think that the stage is a perfect place to discuss sensitive topics, and dementia is something that's although it's not, it's not political, it's not doesn't have anything to do with what else is going on in this crazy world of ours. But it is one of the mind, and it's so difficult. I actually feel strongly that this play, even though it's centered on this one man on stage, that it really has a focus on the caregivers that are in this case the daughter who's taking care of the father. They're the unsung heroes in this story, and and I think in life that that they, without them, with their love and their compassion and their time, that there's only so much that healthcare can do, and with the the loved ones, like this, in this case with the daughter, trying to get him into assisted living. My wife is dealing with her father, who's 87 years old, and he's just at that point, very similar to my character, just like she's coming here to Australia to join me and trying to get him into an assisted living, while just for the month that we're here, is so hard, because he's got his home. He's comfortable in his home. He wants to stay in his home, and psychologically removing them, it's so detrimental. But for their own care, for their own safety, and for the for the family's peace of mind, it's vital that happen. So we need to have compassion towards that process and understanding of it.
No, yeah, no doubt about that.
But there's
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a difficult topic, but there's a lot of hope in the play. So it's very tender.
Yeah, it sounds like a very tender play. But as I bring in Caesar, and Caesar's done some acting, if I remember correctly, and definitely some filmmaking and all along those lines and everything like that. Tell me, what got you first into the acting bug? Were you born there in Australia? Did you have the acting bug all your life, or is this something that came to you later in life, that you developed this acting bug and wanting to be a writer and everything like that? Paul, so when did you actually first get this bug? Were you born with it, as you are definitely a gray-headed person like I am as well? So.
Yeah, no, I grew up in a military family. We moved a lot. I was extremely shy, but there was in my high school, which was in Oregon. Moved from California to Oregon at an early age, and a high school drama director, asked me to be a part of this production, and from then on, I was hooked. So I've been acting all my life, here, there, and everywhere. But now, finally, now that I'm somewhat semi-retired, able to do this on a full-time basis. So very excited.
It sounds amazing, everything. What brought you from Oregon on the west coast of the United States all the way over to Australia, to the land down under, and all along those lines? And how long have you been there, and how have you enjoyed that environment and everything? Paul.
Think you might have been frozen there.
Yeah, he might have been frozen. Hopefully he'll come back.
Yeah.
He does look frozen, so we'll hopefully have him come back and everything like that, because I know he's coming all the way from Australia and all in that space. So while we're waiting for him, hopefully to get unfrozen. Caesar, share a little bit about your background. We've also got Barb that'll be joining us as well, but definitely share a little bit about your background. I know I met you through Wendy Merritt and everything like that, and I know that you've done a lot of work in the film world, from what I understand from Wendy and everything like that, but you're now calling this area home. So tell me a little bit about your own background as well.
Yeah, so I'm originally from California. I do photography. That's what I do. I do a lot of documentary photography. Moved to North Carolina about 5 years ago during the pandemic, actually right before the pandemic started in February of 2020. I lived right outside of the Los Angeles area. So moving to North Carolina to a small town where there's only 4,000 people compared to what I stayed in California was a big culture shock. But it was something that I fell in love with the small town vibe, fell in love with the community here. And I just found myself documenting it and just documenting everything that happens. And, this town has a lot of history, a lot of layered history. And to see how far we have come and to see where we are going is definitely something that I need to document right now and to keep on going on that. And I also am involved in the Hispanic community where I go around and document their community, document the community, document the lowrider scenes. There's a lot of lowriders out here in North Carolina, believe it or not. And so there's a lot of car shows where these lowriders gather up, and I'm out there just documenting the families out there, documenting the community, all the people. It's actually really a fun, great time.
It sounds like it. For those that are not familiar with it, to explain what lowriders are and everything, I know my brother is very much involved in the slingshot community, which is a different kind of car, and all along those lines, he's been involved with that for a number of years. As a matter of fact, he has the Slingers, which is definitely one of our local slingshot clubs and everything like that. But definitely that's the car that is like a three-wheeler and actually open seated and everything like that, or open air, I guess is the best way to describe it. But
yeah, so
about lowriders.
So lowrider basically is a vehicle that bounces. It has a frame, and you can lift up the car. You could lift up the front of it, lift up the back of it. You can do side to side. You can do a three-wheel motion where it's sitting on three wheels, and you have the fourth wheel on sitting up in the air. There's hop competitions where the vehicles are literally just hopping up and down, and there's actual measurements and judges who judge to see who got the highest hop. And it's actually pretty amazing what these cars can do. And these cars are a reflection of the owner. It's their art. That's the way that they express themselves. So these cars can value up to hundreds of thousands of dollars if they're well taken care of. There's actually a lowrider right now in the Smithsonian Museum right now being shown. So that's something that has gone, lowrider culture in itself has just made a big impact. And it's something that I also document as well. So,
of course, my dad is a photographer, and of course, I'm good friends with, or have been a co-worker with Titus Higgins, who's a great photographer here in the area. My dad being Jim Lee, and all along those lines. And of course, there are a number of other great photographers like Gordon Parks and others. So, who are some of the photographers that you grew up admiring and that have helped frame your work and everything like that, Caesar? So, who are some of the photographers that help frame your work?
So definitely Gordon Parks was definitely one. Definitely when honestly, photography has just been in my blood. I grew up around cameras. My grandparents had cameras. They were always using them. I was always on the receiving end of that lens, and so it was just something that it was always around me, and I carried a camera even as a teenager. I always had a camera, and I was always taking pictures of just everything. You know, it didn't matter if it was a piece of trash on the ground or a flower or my buddies or whoever it was. I just wanted to document. And you know, once cell phones started coming out, I kind of dropped the camera. And so after that, I picked up a camera barely not too long ago, actually, probably about 3 years ago. I finally got myself a physical camera, and I haven't dropped it since. And so I want to say that my inspiration came from my grandparents, because they've always had a camera. I've always seen their photo albums, but the great ones for sure, Gordon Parks, Martin Parr, those are some people that I got some inspiration from. But to be totally honest, I want to say I'm self-taught. I've gotten out there and just went out, and I've learned about these people throughout my journey. So
that makes sense. Before I bring in Barbara, she probably has some reflections on some of the things she's working on as well. But Paul, who are some of the people that inspired you in terms of your acting and all along those lines, and even the plays that you have written and everything like that? So who are some of your inspirations growing up there in Oregon? Kind of like I was asking Caesar and everything like that. But who have been some of your inspirations, and whether they are where you are currently at or whether they are where you grew up at?
Well, in Oregon, there I wasn't. I mean, of course, you're influenced by the film industry. I think earlier on, I was very much aware of Sean Penn. I always thought that he, as an actor, was just incredibly moving as an actor. Nowadays, because of my age, I'm more, especially with this play and dementia, focusing on people like Anthony Hopkins, who's well into his 80s, and Christopher Plummer, who was a Canadian actor, Ian McKellen. I just admire that there's certain those actors that are just they don't want to ever stop acting. They just want to keep going. And so very much inspired by them. In fact, Christopher Plummer did a one-man show, and Ian McKellen's done several different one-man shows. And that inspired me to do this particular play and take it on the road and do it, even though I am in my 60s. I'm not in my 80s, but I certainly would like to keep doing this for another 20 years. That would be incredible. So, but those
I could definitely relate to being in the 60s, because I'm in my 60s as well. 63, be 64 on July 1st, and all along those lines. So I can definitely relate to being in the 60 club, and definitely hoping to do even this podcast and other works that I'm doing all along those lines. We just started a new show here on Pod TV that deals with the classics, meaning classical music. And Maestro Curry is the person that does that, as does Jackson Cooper, who ironically is out of Seattle, if I remember correctly, even though he might be moving here. But they're talking about the importance of the classics. And I know that you're a big fan of Shakespeare. And I remember there was a gentleman here that was a big fan of the Shakespeare, and he even did some Shakespearean productions locally and everything like that. So I just wanted, because even sometimes when we think about issues, we don't think about the fact that Shakespeare touched on a lot of issues as well. So I just wanted your thoughts around the importance of Shakespeare and how sometimes he doesn't get maybe the justice that he should get.
Well, I mean, Shakespeare's language can be off-putting. I mean, people think of it as something that they just don't understand. And back in Shakespeare's day, Shakespeare invented a lot of words to work, within his iambic pentameter. Ian McKellen, there was a recent where he was on a talk show, and he did a piece which was they were talking about Shakespeare wrote 400 years ago, but this particular piece, Ian McKellen was talking about the fact that he originated this role. It was Shakespeare, which is amazing after 400 years, but it was a play where Shakespeare only wrote this one, section. And so the whole play wasn't Shakespeare. It was just this one particular part. And he, about the character and the play was talking about immigrants in London. They were dealing with people who were these people are coming in and they're taking our jobs and da 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 da. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Those things happen. History repeats itself. And so here was Ian McKellen doing a speech, basically telling people, what would happen if they send these people away. That these people, and it was incredible speech. It's on YouTube, amazing speech, but it's so poignant to this moment right now that we're experiencing in the world. Whether it's London, the people dealing with anti-immigrants, whether it's in the U.S. anti-immigration, and it speaks to that. And this was Shakespeare 400 years ago, so he's current. The message that he has is still relevant to what we're going on in the world today. So unfortunately, but it was really quite amazing. So that's what speaks to me. The poetry, the language, it's just it's wonderful when it is done well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Caesar. Before I bring in Barbara, I'm going to bring Barbara as well and everything. How important has the camera been? Because I know a lot of what we're seeing, even with the immigration and everything like that, is because of the camera being there that we're able to tell these stories and actually sometimes protect people, or if they are being abused, get documentation of it, and all along those lines. I'm thinking about the incidences around Minnesota and other incidences as well. But I just wondering, how important do you think the camera is to documenting some of these things, even if it's citizens reporters?
It is 100% very important to document what's going on. I'm actually working on a little something where, this town of Gibsonville, right? Its history, wasn't that great of a history, but now it's diverse. We have some Black-owned businesses. We have some Hispanic-owned businesses here. And so what I want to do is what I'm working on is to get into those businesses and to photograph and document them working on their businesses, and to show that, this is what they're here doing. They want the American dream just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it the right way. They're here, they're making money, they have a business running. And so that's what I aim to show with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've got a couple questions for Barbara as well, because she's got this amazing story about the dogs and all along those lines. But before I get to that and everything like that, Caesar, one of the things I know that happens with lowriders is that sometimes, and it's not just lowriders, it's other vehicles as well, is that sometimes the shows and the ways that they are presented are actually on public streets and everything like that. Because I remember a long time ago, wasn't that long ago, maybe a year or two ago, the bus driver getting frustrated because they were doing something. And all along here the streets, and it actually had the bus driver stopping, because I want to say it was on a ladder run, because I was going back home from the cultural center that I work at, so I was probably like 9 or 10, but I know he was trying to continue his run and had to wait for them to finish some of their displays. And I'm not saying it was all lowriders, it might have been other fast cars as well, but I was just wondering, that you hear they complain about is that sometimes people are they're not always doing them on confined areas or areas that are designated for it. Sometimes they're doing it on public streets.
Yeah. So definitely in California, you're going to find them all over the public streets. But here in North Carolina, the way that they do it is the organizers actually get with local businesses and ask permission to use the parking spots. And so we use a whole parking lot basically, and all the cars line up in the slots. We get vendors involved. So vendors will come, we'll get food trucks, we'll get mariachis will come and play live music. There'll be dancers, and it's a big community event, which is amazing because this is a community and a culture that isn't really seen out on the East Coast. It's not really seen out here throughout. So for it to be out here and to a community event, it gives everybody the opportunity to come and check it out and to experience it.
That makes sense. Barb, glad you're joining us, and you've got this
Hi.
organization, Build Your Path LLC, but you've also got this amazing book that has lessons that looks like you've learned from your dog and everything like that. I'm not gonna. My brother has dogs, and I have had dogs in the past. I think Malik still got 1 or 2 dogs in his possession, and all along those lines. But I have become somewhat addicted to those lovely cat YouTubes where the cats are taking over alleys and all along those lines. So there's like the New York version, and there's some other YouTube versions that have both cats and dogs. So I'm always fascinated by folks that have got this love of dogs, cats, and all animals, because I am definitely a big Mother Nature fan. So I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about this book and how you got involved with it. I think one of the characters' name is Jazz. I forgot the other character's name.
Yes, yeah. So first of all, I want to know what we're having for dinner. That's
Okay.
what's really important, because it's just spicy, fun, and smart. So what ended up happening? My background is in manufacturing. I spent 25 years as a senior leader in manufacturing, and working myself up to being executive vice president, CFO. But I'm going like, really, is this all that there is for me to do? So I started studying resiliency, positive psychology, which led me down the road of coaching. And I realized that I had been a coach my whole life while I was in manufacturing. But I quit my job at the end of 2018 to work on finishing out my certification program in coaching. And then the beginning of 2020, guess what happened?
The pandemic.
It was COVID. And it changed everybody's lives. And it changed my life in so many ways. But one of the things I found that I needed, and I was working with clients, I was on Zoom all the time. Even I got a chance to try to figure out how to use StreamYard. But I know that what I needed to get up and going in the morning was to read something inspirational, because it was either reading something inspirational in the morning or looking at TV, and you're going down a rabbit hole. You're looking at TV, looking at your phone. And I needed to read something inspirational. And so I started reading Seth Godin, The Practitioner.
Right.
I read things like Big Panda and Tiny Dragon because I needed to be inspired. So what I ended up figuring out, I'm going like, well, hey, if these guys can do it, I can do it. And at the time I was blogging, posting, and I decided to take the things that I was talking about, because it's what I needed. And if it's what I needed, I know my clients needed it. And so I created this book, So Much to Drool About, Lessons for Living Large. And it's about life stories through the eyes of my 4 Great Danes. And it's, I looked at that as being each person has things and lessons in their life that they need to learn. And so did my dogs. And so I mapped these stories to fit the dog's life. And it's an amazing book. It made Amazon bestseller in 4 categories. I was just awarded the International Press Award for Best Gift Book.
Wow.
Because it's that type of inspirational thing. So let me tell you guys, I never in my life ended up thinking I would have been a successful leadership coach, TEDx speaker, and now an author. But it just over the past 7 years, it just evolved like we all need to evolve. And I'm ever so grateful for the opportunity to have done this and sharing the book with a lot of people. And there's more to come on this.
Well, that's great, and that's an amazing.
That's amazing.
idea. I appreciate that and everything. Now, you said something. My mom had a great name at one point, and that was many years ago because she's now in her 80s, and she just had to give up a big dog, and actually she had to give up a small dog because she thought the small dog was going to be better for her and easy for her to care for, but it wasn't that easy for either caring for the small dog and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, you said you have 4 dogs, not 1, but 4 Great Danes. So
I only have 2 at a time because I honestly, guys, I would have my husband would kill me. I'd have a dozen of these dogs, but we'd need a bigger house. We'd need a tractor trailer to move them. But we've only had 2 at a time. When our first one was a rescue, Jazz. And then a few years later, we ended up getting, my husband goes, oh, we need a puppy. And so we got a puppy. And then when Jazz passed, we got Ariana. And then when Bo passed, we got Zeus. So we only have 2 right now.
Okay, so you only got 2. You mentioned a word that I know is very important to everybody, and hopefully our gentleman from Australia will be coming back. I know sometimes it's hard because we have a regular that comes in from Australia, so he'll be probably coming in and out. But you mentioned a word that we talk about quite often on this show and this network, which is resilience. And I don't know that everybody understands the importance of resilience. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about resilience, but I'd also love to hear Caesar's because it sounds like he's been very resilient as well. So what are your thoughts around the importance of resilience?
So I'll never forget when I had decided that I needed to get out of manufacturing. There's a place in Massachusetts, a place called Kripalu, which is like a retreat center, and they have different weekend seminars, workshops. They have week-long things, but it's just like they work on these workshops, but they do yoga and all really getting people to start thinking about what's the good things that they need to be doing in their lives. And I ended up going there and then I saw this class. It was called the Crafting the Resilient Life. And I'm going, crafting the resilient life. Isn't that what I need? Isn't that what everybody needs? But then at the same time, I started thinking about my resiliency.
Excuse my pups.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. You might hear mine in the background sometime. I started thinking about, I have been resilient throughout my life. I was a widow when I was in my early 30s. And then I have alopecia. And I've had to deal in manufacturing, deal in a man's world, and I'm resilient. So, for me, resilient is really being able to overcome obstacles, overcome things, and being able to launch into something new or reinvent yourself, reframe your situation. And so I went there because I wanted more tools to be resilient, because life happens to us and we can become victims, or we can have life happening for us where we can create from it and move on, or life can happen through us where we can create the wisdom to be able to share with people. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So resilience has multiple perspectives and multiple meanings. And I love that you ended up saying, what's my definition of it? But that's where I'm at with resilience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Paul and Caesar, we talk about resilience because definitely that's something that Barbara's big on and everything. So how much has resilience weighed into your life, Paul? And how much does it help you even with your writing and the things that you've been involved in? So how important is resilience in your life?
Oh, I think Barbara's right. It's important for anyone, whatever they're going through. Without it, you're simply not going to survive or thrive. So yeah, absolutely, it's absolutely important. I think what Barbara's work is profoundly important. So good on you.
Appreciate that. What about you, Caesar? How important and how have you dealt with resilience?
You know what? It's very important. I agree with both Paul and Barb. It's something that it's something that you go through and it builds who you are. It builds your character. There's what I do for work, I work retail full time and I catch shoplifters. So I've been doing that for 15 years. And so every experience for the last 15 years that I've had with someone has been a negative experience. No one is ever happy to see me at the door, right? So, so that, with that, you need to have the resilience. You need to have that type of character to go through life. And you can, exactly what Barb said, you use that to create your own path. And so I think resilience is definitely something that you need to get through life, for sure.
That makes a lot of
Well, I
sense.
think,
Go ahead, Barb.
yeah, I just want to add, I just want to end up saying, you learn from it. It's like when something doesn't go right, it's not a failure. It's like, again, not becoming a victim. It's like, how can I learn from this and then move on to be a better person or being able to help other people? That's really kind of like what what we're all kind of in the lane of, is to be able to somehow influence people to lift them up and inspire them from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Caesar, just really quickly, because I didn't know that about you. A lot of things I learned on this show. That's why I love doing this show, everything like that. But I was just watching an episode recently of Criminal Minds and everything like that. And it was actually because of the shoplifting. It was actually when I believe it was the main African-American characters, one of his relatives had been kidnapped and kind of forced into slavery and all along those lines. But it was because of her deciding to shoplift and getting caught shoplifting, all that, some peanut butter and everything like that. That was the main clue, because that's what they did when they were youngsters. So there was a clue that she was trying to give him to catch the perpetrator and all along those lines. And we know a lot of times people shoplift because they are not able to afford the food. Now, there are cases where people are shoplifting, they can plainly afford the food or whatever they might be shoplifting.
Yes,
but what is your take on that as one that has to catch these people and everything like that? Because I'm sure that sometimes you are trying to have another word that I'm big on and everything, empathy for these people because of the reason that you might be doing it and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on that, because I'm sure sometimes you are good thinking like you didn't need that. It just that you might even be having empathy and letting them go after you've caught them and are protecting the store.
Yeah. So you know what? It's funny because everybody has a story, right? Everybody has a reason why. And so a lot of the times though, everybody says it's their first time. I always ask them how long you've been doing this, and it's everybody's first time. I could show you videos and everybody's going to say it's their first time, right? But that it's not, just because of the way that they do it, right? And so it's one of those things that you feel bad and you understand where they're coming from, because it's funny how I ended up in this job. When I was younger, my mother used to steal. She used to go to stores and steal. And so she unknowingly taught me the skills, what I needed to do in my adult life, right? I actually learn from her mistakes and use them in a positive manner. And so I feel the empathy. I feel, especially when they steal with children, because I was that child, and so I feel it. and I try to talk to them, and I try to, I'm not there to judge. I'm not there to judge anybody. I'm just there to recover the product, and that's it, but it's definitely a job where you feel emotion for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Paul, I'm a big fan of empathy, consider myself to be somewhat of an empath and all along those lines. But how important is empathy even in your writing and in the different things that you do as well? And I also want to hear from Barb and her life coaching, but I'll start with you, Paul. So how important is empathy in the things that you do, even whether it's your writing or the different careers that you've had?
Well, so I for a long time used to be a flight attendant, and dealing with flying is hard. Travel is hard, and people getting on the plane and complaining about their bags, or it's always somebody else or somebody else. But then you have the problem with them right in front of you getting angry about this or that. But yeah, it's if you lack empathy for your fellow human being, then I feel sorry for people who do lack empathy, because it's all about dealing with other people and the joy of meeting other people. I mean, this program that you have, it's wonderful, bringing together people from different walks of life, learning about what Caesar does and Barbara. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. But if you lacked empathy, then it's like, I don't care about you. I just care about me. But as a writer, creating other characters, creating all of this in your head. As an actor, the same thing. I like to think that I have empathy towards other people, but sometimes I find that there's situations where people will have a different way of looking at things, and you're just like, I never thought of that way, and it's wonderful because it kind of opens up your mind to a different way of thinking. So I love being challenged with hearing other people's stories and other people's perspectives on things.
Yeah, before I get to Barbara and her thoughts on empathy, I do have to teach you, because a long time ago, and it might have been on this show, or it might have been on one of the other shows that I do for this network.
You freeze again?
Yep, I think it's Mark this time.
The internet. Love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Paul, where are you calling in from?
Adelaide, Australia. So that's why I was. I'm for whatever reason, the places around here don't really have Wi-Fi. So I'm using my phone, like a hotspot with my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why my connection's a bit sketchy. But
Our
we
host
can-
has left the room. He's left for dinner. He's going to make dinner, is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, there we
It's
go.
going for desserts. Yeah.
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 But yeah,
Man.
that's
So I'm calling
so you're-
from snowy Syracuse, outside of snowy Syracuse,
Syracuse,
New York.
Okay.
Okay, New York. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Nice. And I am in North
I can't-
Carolina.
Where it's nice and sunny, warm. He was saying that the weather's warm down there now.
Yeah, it's definitely warmed up from what it was for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I flew here from just the other day. I flew from China, so I was up in northern China, and where it was clearly winter, and now I'm summer. So
That's crazy. Yeah. Man.
I know that's
Wow,
the
so
one
you-
thing about visiting Australia and New Zealand. It's like, you end up thinking about just watching the Olympics. There was somebody, from Australia or New Zealand. It's like, and they were able to, thinking about skiing in when we were in the summertime, and now they're come up, more to be able to ski and stuff like that. So I think it's just amazing.
On the flight here, I ran into a couple guys that were coming from Japan. They were just in Japan skiing, and one of the people that that I know here through a friend is actually a ski instructor during the winter time. But so it's a big for New Zealand and I don't know where in Australia they ski, but they have skiing. In the here it comes back. But yeah, it's our summer. You can come here and go skiing.
That's interesting.
yeah. And people do it. I'm sure. They travel. Travel around the world. Catching the different ski seasons. There he is.
So we thought you might be going out for dessert. So what's for dessert?
Yeah, no dessert. I wish there was dessert, but sometimes technology has its own wonders and everything. I don't know if you heard the question I asked, but I was asking about some of the unusual things that you have seen as a flight attendant, because I did have a author that had written a book where there was a kangaroo on one of her flights and everything like that. So I know that there are unusual things that people have had, and that I think was a support animal and everything like that. So I was just wondering, what are some of the unusual things, Paul, that you have encountered in your work as a flight attendant when you were a flight attendant before you retired?
Yeah, 22 years as a flight attendant. But yeah, probably I've seen it all, but I did not see a kangaroo. That was most of the support animals. It's been 15 years since I left the skies. I just but at that point, support animals are pretty much dogs. I think I saw, I'm not sure, but I think I saw a turtle at one time, but I don't know, it's whatever you need for support, that's a good thing. But yeah, there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of, celebrities throughout the years, a lot of people. I think we had a death on one flight and a birth on another flight. So I've seen both ends of that spectrum. But we've had emergencies where we've had to land because we lost an engine. And emergency landings. But they statistically, and this was my case. There's people that have fear of flying, but I went as you imagine a flight attendant, you're traveling all the time, and so the amount of hours that I was on an airplane and yet never, except for that emergency landing, never had an issue, never had an accident, never had an injury. So so we're, it's extremely safe. Extremely safe. Don't be afraid.
It's very safe.
Thank you.
Getting in your car, though, that could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, the car might be even more dangerous and everything like that. I actually don't drive. I get around, like I said, by mass transit and everything. I did want to hear from Barbara and her thoughts around the empathy and everything like that. But before I get to that, Paul, I did have one other question for you, because you're kind of the opposite of what I hear some of my female friends complain about, because you're in a career as a flight attendant, at least historically, I think it may have been changing, that was seen as female dominated and everything like that. But you were a male flight attendants. I was just wondering, is that a mistake on my part? And has there been a rise in men becoming flight attendants? Because the stereotype is, and I do know it's a stereotype, is that it's going to be a woman stewardess, just like it will be a woman in some other careers, like nursing.
Well, it is female heavy, but it was. But there, the flight that I came here, it was Air China. It was China Southern Airlines flying here from China, and there were quite a few male flight attendants on that one. So, and that's, you know, Chinese culture. I don't know if that's different, but for me, I was in the minority for sure. But you know, I was surrounded by women, and we would, you know, and the off duty we'd talk about all sorts of, you know, female, talking about empathy. You know, you talk about what they want to talk about, and so I talked about things that I'd never even dreamt of. So, you know, it was quite eye opening for sure. But yeah, there were, and some of the guys that you know were flight attendants were gay. So I just, you know, of course, you know, being in acting, you know, you have that kind of the homosexual, and with a flight attendant was homosexual, but so I felt very comfortable around that community. So I enjoyed, you know, being you know, with that kind of creative mindset, and the sexual orientation had no effect on me at all. You know, and you know, so I'm glad that I don't have that stigma of being uncomfortable around people of a different sexuality. So you know, so it was good.
No, I appreciate that and everything. Hey, Barbara, I definitely want to hear your thoughts around empathy, because you mentioned something that you have that people just will not necessarily think about it, because most people, when they think about alopecia, they think about the balding aspect. And I do see that you have hair, whether it's a wig or not, that's another matter, and that you can either share or not share, depending on how you feel about it. But I have known some people with alopecia, and definitely that is something that either creates empathy with some people when they see that, or sometimes it can either be a drawback, as it can throw people off and all along those lines. So I'm thinking that empathy has probably even played a part in that element, and it is how has it impacted how people have dealt with you when they find out that you have alopecia?
So, you know, it's for the empathy. You know, it's really allowing people, it's really, for me, it's a lot about relationships. It's about caring about people and understanding people. And I always talk about that there's a human on the other side, because we don't know what other people are going through. And so being empathetic is to really try to connect, to really understand and see how you can connect with whatever's going on, and being there and being empathetic or for what they've been through. And for me, I lost my hair when I was in my 20s. Yes, this is a wig. And for the most part, I was extremely self-conscious about it. My first husband passed without ever seeing me without my wig. And then my second husband, it wasn't really until about 7-8 years ago that I would take off that wig in front of him. When I went into the shower, and, you know, you can't come in here, honey, because I was really extremely conscious about it. Women are adorned by their hair. And for me, it was, and especially being in the business setting that I played in, I played with executives, I played in representing the company. And so I needed to always, and I have this phrase, looking good and getting it right, is killing my soul. And that's what it did. It's what I did when I was in manufacturing, but it did that when I became diagnosed with alopecia, because I had to look good. I would never walk out the door without my eyelashes, without, obviously my wig, but just looking like I was polished. And I needed to get comfortable in my skin. And it took me a long time. And obviously, I'm still working on it. And when I decided to do my TEDx talk, I had decided that I wanted to be revealing. I wanted to reveal who I really was. And I took it off in the TEDx talk. And now when I speak and when I'm with clients and I'm trying to get them to be able to drive the point home about being themselves, being empathetic even to themselves, I will whip the wig off in our sessions and it's not meant to shock anybody, but it's okay to be who you really need to be and who you are. And it going back to the resilience, going back to the lessons learned, we all need to learn these lessons. And for me, on this time on my earth, I've been granted this condition, and I've dealt with it. And sometimes it gets. I can always tell somebody is like looking at me like, what's different? And for the most part, people that I meet will go, and I tell them that I've got alopecia, that this is a wig, and they're going like, what? Because it's not just what's on the outside, but it's really being confident of who I am on the inside so that it can shine through anything that I'm going through. So I think, we all have things in our life.
It's amazing and everything like that. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
real amazing. Speaking of that and along those lines, one of the things I talk about often on this show is the imposter syndrome, and the imposter syndrome. I'm guilty of it and everything along those lines, because definitely sometimes we are our worst critics and everything like that, because I know that even in my relationship pursuits, and I'm in my early about to be mid 60s, and they've still not found that queen, and all along those lines and everything like that. But I do know that I have talked myself out of things because sometimes not feeling all that confident in myself, even in job opportunities as well. So I was wondering, how much has that impacted your lives, and how have you gotten past that? Because I'm always on this show fascinated by people's dealings with the imposter syndrome. Some have freely admitted that they had it in their life. Some have found little secrets to get out of it. But how have y'all dealt with that imposter syndrome? Because I think we all have it at some point or another. So how have you dealt with that imposter syndrome?
I'm going to start because when I was working in manufacturing, I felt as an imposter. I finished my MBA, got into it, but manufacturing was a man's world. And I had to always make sure that I had my T's crossed and my I's dotted. And it made me work harder, jump higher, work longer. And at what cost? The cost that I couldn't be with myself, that I had issues, or I was imperfect. So I carried around the imposter syndrome for a long, long time. But I think it really wasn't until I started really searching as to who I am and what do I really need to do. The resilience training, the positive psychology training, the desire to help people. That's when I started really pulling out of my imposter syndrome, when I felt safe to reveal who I truly was.
Yeah. What about you, Caesar or Paul? How have you dealt with that imposter syndrome? I think we've all had it at some time or another. So how have y'all dealt with it?
You know what? It's something that I still deal with today. Just because like I said, I've always been in photography my entire life, but up until 2-3 years ago, when I picked up a camera again, I decided to get real serious with it. I didn't know where I was gonna go. I didn't know what I was doing. All I know is I had a camera and I wanted to take pictures. And, you know, I'm at the point right now where I'm blessed. I'm fortunate to be here on the show with you guys. You know, today I worked on I picked up a freelance gig for our local newspaper, and I shot a grand opening for the town for their first museum. The mayor was there, so all these opportunities are coming, and I'm kind of like, you know, I'm still trying to figure things out, and that's where I feel that imposter syndrome is hitting me, because I kind of feel like I'm at a wall, because it's like, where do I go from here? You know, where is this taking me, or where do I want to take it? And I just think that me being out there, and it's like therapy to me when I'm outside and I'm taking a photo. It's like a therapy, you know? So that's where I want to be. And every time I go out there and I feel like I'm having these moments, I just go for a walk. Take my camera, and it just makes me realize, you know, especially when I connect with people, because one thing that the camera does is make me connect with people that I never connected with, you know, and so I think that's very important. And when I feel those moments, that's when I wake up out of that, and I feel like, okay, I'm not an imposter, but you still get those moments.
Well, you know what? I tell you what also, which doesn't help, is the social media, what goes on in the comparisons that we have. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't want to be a kid growing up in this age. It's so hard. So hard about the comparisons, and they have to strive harder, and they end up having to, I mean, what they're going through, and then having been through it in COVID. So,
yeah, no doubt about that and everything. How do you deal with the imposter syndrome, Paul? I'm sure you've had it both in the States and even in Australia and other places. So how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, well, I wanted to say something really quick about, because Barb mentioned something about, you know, being a woman in the business industry. As a flight attendant, I would see this all the time, where people would get on and they wanted to see in the cockpit to see who was flying the plane. And when there was a female pilot, they, you know, yeah, I mean, this was back in the day when that was a novel kind of thing. But I found that the female pilots were so much better than the male pilots, because they had to be, because it was a male-dominated industry, and they worked harder. They you know, were better, so much better. So I felt safer with a female pilot, but obviously most people were, you know, would come on and just like, oh. So I feel like, you know, with that whole thing, it is tough. But with the imposter syndrome, I think it was another thing that Barb said was about the you know, the ability to fail. I see failure as a good thing. If you fail, you know, then it gives you an opportunity to learn from that failure and then grow. That if you're afraid of failure, that you're not going to grow. You know, Caesar, I'm sure, finds out that with the camera in hand. I mean, if he doesn't fail, you know, at this F stop or that, you know, I don't know anything about photography, you could tell, but you know, like,
you got that right. You got that right.
Yeah, but you experiment. Well, what if I do this? Well, what if I do that? You know, tons of failures, but you know, opportunities to grow as an artist. You know, with your camera, and you know, with acting, with, you know, everything. If I am doing this whole thing. I wrote the play. I'm acting in the play. I'm producing the play. I'm just doing everything. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm figuring it out, and I'm making mistakes. But every day I get better at what I'm doing. So it's just the embracing failure as a positive, and then I think that kind of erases a whole bunch of the imposter syndrome for me anyway, because I really don't care what other people think about me or about my play. I just it's like I'm going to keep going, and when I at the end of the day it still I'm delighted when they're like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. So you still seek that positive reinforcement, but if I don't know what I'm saying, but just
but
embrace
you're committed to the process. You're committed
Yeah.
to getting it out there, and that's what is keeping you going. It doesn't matter what people now are thinking. It's this purpose, this thing that you want to put out, and that's what you're committed to. And it doesn't matter what they're all thinking.
No, I agree with
I
you.
love that.
And just the forward momentum, like Caesar was saying, with the the mayor and everything. These opportunities wouldn't be happening for him if he wasn't putting himself out there in the first place. So I'm just at the beginning of the journey, and I want to be like Caesar when I grow up. So,
well, speaking of that, along those lines, and speaking of that, one of the other things we talk about quite often on this network is part of the reason that Nick and Kim founded this network is this notion that there are things that are not taught in the school system. And Nick, one of the founders of the network, is a pension attorney. Kim is a engineer and an inventor. She's invented a couple of things, including saying that one thing that deals with domestic violence and all along those lines and everything like that. But there's this whole notion of fiscal responsibility. And I know that I'm not always the best at that and all along those lines. So I was wondering for everybody here, because we're all to some degree involved in a form of media business and also show business and everything like that. But everybody hears those terms, and business is part of the word, but a lot of people don't have the business aspect of it and everything like that. So I'll start with you, Paul, because you're producing this whole play and everything. At what point did you realize the importance of business, and how do you build your team? Because you're producing it, you're also writing it and everything like that. So I imagine you've got to have a team, but a lot of times folks are not as fiscally responsible, and they don't even oftentimes have a business plan, even in the entertainment world. One of the things that I've mentioned on this show before is I have a good friend of mine that was a rental coordinator for one of our local theaters, and he used to joke that everybody is the producer until it's time to write the check. Meaning that we've all got these great ideas, the check, and then they're not producers anymore because they don't have the money and the wherewithal to pull off what they want to pull off, even though they got this amazing idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a business person. I own a travel agency in addition to being an actor. But but being an actor is not fiscally responsible. There's so much to producing the show. The goal is not to make money, but to simply break even. To doing this world tour. But there's so many other opportunities, so many things that are not, you can't put on the balance books or on the books. Opportunities of meeting people, of putting yourself out there as a performer. No one knows me as a performer unless they've seen me. I started out doing stage work. I turned to film because I realized that, unless I did film, that all of my performances, unless you came and saw my show on stage, you hadn't seen me perform. But if I do a film, then you can, different people can watch the film. But now I've returned to stage because I love it so much. But that's why I'm doing this world tour, to take that production to different places. But it's certainly not fiscally responsible. Just breaking even is a huge thing. But the first year of doing this. From what I'm learning is basically, I'm doing Adelaide so that the play that I take to Edinburgh is the world's largest fringe festival, can have more reviews, more awards, or whatever. So when it comes to Edinburgh, then people go, oh, okay, well that show must be good because of all these reviews and these awards. So so I'm doing these other ones so that it will be easier to sell tickets in Adelaide, in Edinburgh, sorry. And but in 2027, I hope to do the world tour again and just expand the tour. That year might actually be financially successful. This year, I'm hoping to break even is my goal. So it's probably not.
Yeah, breaking even
Sorry?
is important and everything like that. It's very important to break even. Hey, Caesar, along those same lines, I know that there are a lot of times that, particularly if you got that skill set of being a photographer, that people want you to do the friends and family discount. So I'm sure you get that sometimes. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Probably like, can you take the picture of this wedding, or can you take the picture at this sporting event? And I know that there's got to be, because I have other friends that are photographers, not just family members, but a good friend of mine, Martin, is a real estate photographer, and he did the photographer for our Road to the Apollo, and he's appeared on this show, I think once, maybe twice, and everything like that. But I know that he sometimes gets those friends and family discount questions, so I'm sure you do it as well. So how do you deal with that when folks are like, hey, you're my boy?
Yeah, so okay. So there's a difference, right? When I'm out with my camera and I'm out shooting and I interact with you and I take your photo, that's for free. That's because I'm there and I want to do it. But now if you're asking me for a service and you're asking me to go somewhere and to drive somewhere, that's a whole different story, right? So realistically, I hook my people up. I'll hook my people up. If it's like for example, like my niece, I got my niece. I'm not going to charge my niece to take photos of her and her family, right? It's something that I want to do, if I got a buddy, and I know he's not really doing so good, but he wants a family portrait, I'm gonna help him out. You know what I mean? So I'm not really one to, hey, I'll work things out, but for example, I had this one where, they wanted all this set up and they wanted this done and that done, but all I can give you is $50. I'm like, whoa. Those are things where I'm like, okay, well, once your budget is a little bit larger, then we can talk, but I can't drive 2 hours for $50. That's gas. That's my entire gas right there. So
the reason I'm laughing is because I remember an incident, and this took place like 10 or 15 years ago, and I hate to say it, but it was a church institution, and they wanted me to help them find a sound individual. And anybody that knows sound knows that sound makes a pretty decent amount of money and all along those lines. So when I asked them what their budget was, they were like, well, we can pay them $50. And I'm going like, I don't even know a sound person that I could call that's even going to phone for that amount of money, because somebody bring in their speakers and their whole sound equipment and everything like that. So I understand that sometimes organizations like churches are trying to get the discount as well. But yeah, this took place decades ago, and I to this day still remember that. I'm going like, you want me to just make a call for $50? I'm not even going to make a call.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's the thing. A lot of people misunderstand photography. A lot of people think it's just a click of a picture, a click of a button and there's your photo, but you can do that. But is that photo going to tell a story? You need to capture those moments where, there's stories in it, where there's a story within a story, and I think that people have misperceptions about it, and they think that it's not really worth the value that it really is worth, and for example, you have a business that'll pay hundreds of dollars to get a design put on their window, but they won't pay a photographer fee for their commercial photos. There's just a lot that goes into photography in the background. It's the editing, it's sorting the files, it's getting the gallery ready, it's the presentation, it's all of that, and that's all goes into the photo, and I think a lot of people don't really understand that part of it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Hey, Barb, just really quickly, and this is a switch of conversation, but it's still something that has fascinated me all along those lines. You mentioned the 4 dogs that you've had, and that's part of what Drool is about and everything. What are some of those life lessons that you got from your animals? Because I know that I've had life lessons from all the animals I've had, including the geckos that I had many years ago and everything like that. I used to joke that I thought that they were watching the gecko commercial and wondering why their cousin was on TV and everything like that. What are some of the life lessons that you have learned from your dogs?
There's so many in there. One of the things I work with clients is that we don't get a chance to dream enough. And our first Great Dane was a rescue, and she lived in a crate for her first year. And so I'm going like, what was she thinking? And one of the first stories in her section is a picture of her in a crate and then dreaming of mom and dad, what that might look like. Well, we call ourselves mom and dad. And it's because we need to dream. So I'm seeing that my dog was dreaming. She had a hope to be able to get out of her situation and find a home. What about us? Don't we need to dream a little bit and find what we need to do? And then one that's followed right behind that is, can you imagine? She lived in a crate for her first year, but then yet she was going to be coming into our home and thinking about how scary that was. And how many times we, as humans, we are facing different situations and we think about how scary it is. And in the particular story, I talk about grasping the nettle, and it was actually a story that I learned from when I was in junior high on Long Island. And my social studies teacher was talking about what it's like to grasp hold of the nettle. And a nettle is a prickly plant. So I'm going like, how difficult was that for her to walk up the walkway, up the sidewalk to our house? And so these are stories that are all relatable to us as humans, and they're stories that we can learn from. And I'm in the process of writing a book that's going to take a lot of the stories, but putting it through a elementary school, junior high type level to read and asking them questions, because I think going back, and talking a little bit of, somebody mentioned something about what are they teaching in schools now? They're not teaching. This is all about social emotional learning. They're not teaching that anymore. And they're not teaching about critical thinking. And it's like, that's why it's called so much to drool about, Lessons for Living Large, because life is to be drooled over. And I want these kids and I want us to be able to drool over life and our situations and our learning, because it's just nothing but what we've been talking about, learning.
Yeah, okay. Along those same lines, because I was part, speaking of the pandemic, and I need to get in touch with IPC. You can find him on Instagram. It stands for I Paint Creatures. But he had a group of folks that was a audio theater troupe. It was called the Funky Eye Puppets, and they were on Clubhouse, and I was part of that and everything like that. And he had both professional actors and non-professional actors that were part of it, and all along those lines. But we would have practice, and sometimes he would tell us to get out of our heads because a lot of times we're so busy adulting that we forgot the childlike wonders and all along those lines. I was just wondering, what do you do to have play in your lives? Because oftentimes, and once we get to a certain age, and I'd say probably once you get college age and sometimes even high school, to your point earlier about Barb, about social media and everything like that, that a lot of the childlike wonder that I remember as a kid back in the 70s doesn't seem to be as much out there as it used to be and everything like that. So what are some of the ways that you try to bring childlike wonder into your life? And do you think that I'm overstating it when I think that we're not as having as much creativity and play as we used to? Anybody?
Oh, I'll go there because I think I'm going to tell you something. If we could get out of our heads, and I think that there's two conversations we're having one in our head all the time because we're saying, oh, we can't do that, we can't do this, or that's not going to work. But if we can start having conversations where we're putting these ideas out there and becoming creative, and as Paul was talking, I wanted to say to him, when he was talking about what he's doing, it's like sometimes we don't know everything that we need to know. And I say to clients a lot of time, go before you know. And so if you can start thinking about what if there is something new we can do, and I do a talk about quantum flirts, like things that come to you and you go poo-poo them because, and that's not ever going to work. But what if you thought you could try to do this? 7 years ago, 8 years ago, never would have thought I would have been a TEDx talk a speaker, never would have written a book. But somewhere along the line, we are all creative beings, and we just need to get out of the head. Thanks for bringing that up.
No problem. What's your take on that and everything? Because a lot of times I'm sure that there are pictures that you're seeing and everything like that that are fascinating you, and sometimes you might regret even missing a shot. Because I can tell you, what are some of the missed shots that you have regretted? Because I can tell you, I've done that a couple of times because I am a big fan of Merlin. It's a app that lets you hear the birds and know what birds you're listening to, and all along those lines. And I became a fan of that through a friend of mine who is a poet and a scientist and everything like that, and another friend who is a former TV producer. So I actually was doing that earlier today. Was out there listening. I think it found a robin and a house finch, and might have found a crow. But there have been times that it's found other birds as well. But there have been times that I've had my phone with me, because we've all got, to Bar's point, the phone with us and everything. And I was going I saw maybe a rabbit, or it was the one time that I didn't have the phone with me, and I'm going why don't I have the phone? Because it was the shot that I wanted to take, but I didn't have the phone.
Yeah.
Ran back home. Mr. Rabbit was good, not really having that DeMille moment, so he'd already hopped away.
Yeah, so man, there's actually this one I can go back to. There's on I-40 going east towards the beach, the split where 85 and 40 meet, right? There's this old billboard sign, and I want to say it almost looks like a vintage board, right? And so every time I drive by it, I want to take a photo of it, right? I want to, and I just get this urge to take a photo of it. And I haven't because I'm on the highway, I'm going 70, and I would have to pull off of the highway to get the shot. And so I keep telling myself to do it because it's deteriorating, right? Well, one day I drove by it and the entire corner just fell off, and that was my moment where I was like, wow, I completely missed it. I didn't get out to take the shot, and it was just a sign that I wanted to take a photo of. But if I don't know, it was just something that if you don't take the shot when you should take the shot, then you're just never going to get the shot, you know? And even with my cell phone, if I don't have my camera on me, I'm okay, I need to get this shot, so I'll use my phone, you know. But for the most part, I have my camera on me all the time. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
um,
Yeah, I can agree with that and everything like that. Hey, Barb, you mentioned earlier having your, I guess you're on this with a second husband now and everything like that. But one of the things that we oftentimes talk about on this show is work-life balance. I don't know if you have any kids. I don't have any kids. I do have my two nephews. One is getting ready to go to college next year. I'm very proud of Julius. He's got accepted, I think, by 5 universities, and he's just trying to figure out which one he's going to go to. But it will probably be in-state, unlike his uncle that went out of state, because I'm from North Carolina, but I went to school in Milwaukee at Marquette and everything like that. But I was just wondering, how do you deal with that work-life balance, whether you have kids or don't have kids and everything like that? Because that's something we oftentimes talk about on this show is the work-life balance, and if it's even possible, with so many people having multiple jobs.
Well, you know, you ended up talking about creativity. I have a brain that just doesn't ever stop. So, you know, so I don't have any children. My first husband, he had 4 children, and he passed away. And so after he passed, I had to, again, be resilient, and I had to find new things. And that's where I'm always in this creative mode. And so, and then later on, a couple of years later, I met Frank, and then we got the Great Danes. But one of the things that is important to me, my downtime, are my dogs, but also getting together with people. I love getting together, having dinner, having a glass of wine. I don't like to talk on the phone. I like to meet people, or else I drive. While I'm driving a lot, I will talk in the car. But I think my downtime is the conversation. But it is important because I've got a great tribe of friends around me that will help me to see things I'm not. Frank is a great one, and you know, we'll talk about this and we'll talk about that. But it just, so I get my balance that way. I also do meditations. I do reading. I'm constant, but my problem is my brain doesn't shut down. There's so much I want to do before I exit this earth, and so that's my problem. So I'm trying to weave in a lot of good times and a peaceful time to be able to balance it out.
Yep. Lisa, how do you deal with that work-life balance? I'm not sure if you got a significant other or not, but how do you deal with that work-life balance, and how do you manage all the things you're doing, whether it's the store and the retail work or whether it's the other jobs as well? So how do you manage that work-life balance?
You know what? I have a wife and I have an 11-year-old son. So we also have two dogs and 2 cats, and we find time throughout the day. Honestly, it's I work full time, so obviously when I'm working full time, I come home and we eat dinner together. We always eat dinner together. We're always at the dinner table together. So we, I think we just find time throughout the day to be with each other, to spend time. One of my days off I'll be working photography stuff. My next day off, we're doing something with the family. So, I think the fact that my job lets me make my own schedule, that definitely makes things a lot flexible for me, and a lot makes that life work balance kind of easy. So
yeah, that makes sense. Just real quickly, and then I want to get to Paul as well and everything like that. But you said 2 things that caught my attention in all of those lines. One, because Barb actually kind of alluded to it earlier, you mentioned that y'all sit down and have dinner together. That's part of the reason that I created this show, the online dinner parties, because I remember us having dinner, and sometimes my family of my dad and mom playing cards after dinner and all along those lines. So that's when I created this idea of this show, because those were conversations that I remember them having with their friends. But now we have people going to stores and restaurants, and I'm guilty of it too, going to DoorDash or something like that. And they're out at a restaurant, everybody's on their individual phones. They're not talking to each other and everything like that.
Yeah. So well, that's one of the rules at our dinner table. There's no devices. So we ask about what was the good part about our day, what was the bad part about our day, and we conversate. No devices allowed at the dinner table, and we connect with each other with no devices.
Yeah, you gotta have that connection. The other thing you said that I want to get to Paul's thoughts around work-life balance as well is that, because some people think of, and like I said, I've had both, that you have to be either a cat person or a dog person, but you said you've got both. So how does the cats and the dogs get along? Because I've seen some families where the cats and the dogs are like brothers and sisters. They get along quite well and everything like that.
That's exactly what they are right now. They are brothers and sisters, and thankfully they get along just fine. No issues. We have our one senior dog, and we have a senior cat, and then we have two juvenile, one dog, one juvenile cat. And so I think maybe that's kind of where the balance helps out a little bit, but everybody gets along, and it's great.
They don't try to raid the kitchen table while y'all having dinner?
Oh, so they know to stay outside of the kitchen while we're having dinner. So yeah, so every now and then one of them will try to sneak in, but we'll be like, hey, you know where to go.
You're supposed to be in the pet section, like we used to say. We do pet section during holidays. And everything. They're supposed to be in the pet section. Everything like that. Paul, how do you deal with that work-life balance? I think you said you do have a significant other. I can't remember if you did or not, but definitely, how do you deal with that work-life balance?
Yeah, my wife is very supportive of my acting, which is wonderful. Very loving and giving in that area. Basically, acting is a I'm self-employed as an actor, so I also own a travel agency, and I find that when you're running your own business, it's very hard not to work around the clock. There's no, especially when you're working from home, there's always something more to do. So But I enjoy what I do. So I look forward to working. I mentioned Anthony Hopkins and Ian McKellen and other older actors who as I go, that's it. I want to act until the day I die, and that's kind of where I am. I just want to keep on taking advantage of the time that I have on this planet. I've had brushed with cancer. I've had a heart attack. I know that I'm mortal. That I only have so many years to accomplish the things that I want to do. But that said, I am totally envious of Caesar's. I think family time. And having that, around the dinner table is to be admired, and I praise him for doing that. I've seen people, sitting, kids these days, sitting opposite the table, and they're on their phones. They're texting each other sometimes. It's like, what? I just don't understand. Yeah. So to have the no device rule and have the kids go along with that. I tried with that with my kids after the divorce, and that did not go well. Come on, kids, give me the phone so you can go to sleep and all that. That was what? Yeah. So you need the support of the adults in the room, and sometimes you don't get that inner divorce. So
Don't always get that. That's true, and everything like that.
good on you.
I hear you. Just really quickly along those same lines, that we're going to wrap up shortly, and all along that line and everything like that. What advice would you give to folks that are thinking they want to go into these various careers that you are part of? So I'll start with you, Caesar, but I definitely want to hear from Barbara in terms of being an author, and you in terms of being a playwright and an actor, but everything. But if somebody's saying, and they're hearing this conversation, they're going like, I want to be like Caesar, I want to be a photographer, and everything like that. So what advice would you give to folks that think that they want to be a photographer?
I just pick up a camera and do it. Honestly, what's funny is when I first got serious with the photography, I told my boy, I'm going to be able to do anything with this camera. And one day you're going to see me in an art gallery. And 1 year down the line, I was put in an art gallery. So I'm also showing and teaching him that if you put your mind to it, you can do it. You are the only person that is holding you back. So if you believe in yourself 100%, do it. And so that's it. I think that's the thing, is just get out and do it. A lot of us hold ourselves back because of our head. We criticize ourselves. We judge ourselves. We are our number one enemy, and I think that's what stops people from being creative. And what Barb had mentioned earlier, they're afraid of judgment. They're afraid of, being looked down, or they didn't get as many likes as they thought they were gonna like, or get, but just do it. Who cares? Put it out there. It's you're doing it for yourself, and if you can put your mind into it, you can do it. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know the other thing that gets in people's ways, and then I definitely want to hear Barbara's advice about being an author, is that sometimes people are not realizing that they might have to do multiple jobs. I've got a good friend of mine that's a funk musician, but he also drives Uber. So sometimes you have to have that gig economy where you have to do multiple jobs until you take off in your careers and all along those lines. So I just wondering, how have you dealt with that, or even when you're encouraging people? Because some people think that they're just automatically going to do it, not realizing that they've got to do other jobs. Like I said, I work at the Cultural Arts Center. I do this with the podcasting network, and I also have a job that has nothing to do with the arts, and it's probably the job that I like the least, but it pays the most, and that is working for a testing company and all along those lines. So it's actually that whole notion of end of the year testing is one of the larger ones here in the country, as well as in the state, and all in that space. But definitely it's probably not the one that satisfies me the most, even though sometimes the kids do write some interesting essays that I may borrow from and some of their ideas and with my own creativity. But it's in terms of the real passion, that's not a real passion project for me and everything, whereas the Cultural Arts Center, the event planning, and of course this podcasting is, and everything like that. So what do you say to folks that are thinking that they can get by on the creative side and not have to have that side gig?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Barb. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Caesar. I didn't.
I was just gonna say, just keep going at it. I mean, we're all gonna have to start at the bottom, right? So we all start at the bottom, and you're gonna need that full-time job to help support your dream, right? So I think you just have to work at it and make it work until you're able to balance out, okay, it's time for me to let go of this job and I can fully go to this job.
Yeah, that makes sense. Barb, what advice would you give those in that regards, but also in terms of folks that are thinking they want to be an author? I was had the pleasure, I think it was last year, actually January of last year, to be a author. I've now been an author twice. Well, the first time I wasn't totally an author. It was actually one of these interviews. It was a one-on-one interview, and it was with an artist, Van Dorn Hennon. They loved the interview so much that he turned it into a book. So technically, I guess I am a co-author of that, even though it's Van Dorn's name and everything like that, because he loved it so much. Printed it into a book form. But last year, my good friend Brian Shulman, anybody that follows us LinkedIn knows his What's Good Wednesdays and Shout Out Saturdays that he used to do, and all along those lines. But he had us write a chapter, and I was one of several people that wrote a chapter. And mine was actually about the soul family, because I think we all have a family that we're born into, and we also have our soul family. Many of the guests the show are part of my
Amen.
family.
Wow.
On those lines, so I'm a big believer. So that's what my chapter was about. I said that I love
Wow.
my church family, the family that I was born into, but I also love and gave examples of the soul family that I have as well, and everything like that. So that book was published last year and everything like that. So you type up Brian Showman, you'll see various ones of his books, and unfortunately, I can't think of the title off the top of my head. I know I should know that, but it is also on our Amazon bookstore that Pod TV has as well, and everything like that. So what advice would you give to folks? Everybody thinks they got a book in them, just like everybody thinks they got a movie in them. So what advice would you give to folks that I want to write my book?
So one of the things I'm going to say to you, you know, you can start out with a passion. You can start out with, I want to do this. You can start taking a look at what people are doing and really being able to investigate and mirror. But, you know, I'm going to tell you, I've had so many careers. I started out as a riding instructor and training of horses. And I ended up getting in that because I rode as a kid. I started riding at 10 years old, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. But when I got out in the world, I found that I had to find a living. And I needed to go back to, I went back to school, but I also found a full-time job that I worked at while I was going to school part-time. So you do what you have to do. After I got my undergrad, I became an auditor for the state of New York. I hated it. And I said to my husband at the time, I want to go back and get my MBA. I got my MBA. I got into manufacturing. 25 years later, I hated it. So you know what? You do not have to be stagnant. You just continue to move forward. You put one step in front of the other, and you're going to learn, because just when you think that step is what you want to do, that ground may get a little wonky, and you're going to have to reposition itself. And I am still evolving myself. I mean, yes, I became a coach, speaker, trainer, TEDx, an author. Now what I want to do is take this into schools. So there's always something that I'm following the breadcrumbs, and that is another story that's in my book. Follow the breadcrumbs. What comes in front of you, and explore it. Many times I have had clients who go like, I need to find out my next thing. I'm going, oh, okay. I can't tell you what the next thing is going to be for you. I can help walk alongside you. We can talk about values, purpose. But this one client I had, she was an executive at a company outside of Boston. And I told her, I want you to put on an explorer hat. I want you to look at things. And you talked a little bit about childlike faith, looking at yes. And it's like, go ahead, do it. Give yourselves permission to do it. And she decided that she didn't want to do what she was doing anymore. And she quit her job. And now she's doing energy healing. So it's like, you never know. Can you hear my dogs?
I hear the dogs.
And they sound like good boys.
Yeah, they are. That's my boy. You never know where life is going to take you, and explore and cherish the moments.
What advice would you give to folks who want to be authors? Other than that advice, but what other advice would you give to folks who want to be authors?
Build a team around you. I mean, I could not have done this without my illustrator. I have an editor that walked alongside me. I started working with a coach 7 years ago. Even though I'm a coach, I believe that everybody needs a coach. And because we need it, I need a team. When I was in manufacturing, it's the same thing I did. I needed a team to be able to see different things that I couldn't see, to be able to help the project move forward. So get a team, know what you want to do, get a team, but know what you thought you were going to do is not what's going to happen, because it's going to be an evolution as to what that product is going to look like.
That makes sense. You definitely got to get that team.
Wow.
That team is very important. That's very profound. Paul, what about you? What do you say to those folks that think that they want to be a playwright or an actor? I know a lot of folks that think that that's just simple and everything along those lines. I have not written a play. I wish I could think I had written a play. I have written a skit and everything, and I've written a couple of skits, but I have not written a full play as of yet. Doesn't mean it's not coming, but just as it happened.
Yeah. Well, I would echo what Barb and Caesar. Basically, just do it. You know, get out there and do it. You know, there's so many reasons not to start. There's so many reasons not to finish what you've started. But you know, I've written a film. I've written several stage plays now, and I recently wrote a book. And I've always wanted to be an author. And what stopped me from being an author is the fact that I just didn't do it. I didn't start. Now with it's a book about why I wrote this play and taking this adventure. It was kind of like, okay, here's something that I'm doing finally that I feel is just so monumental. And you know, to me as an older person, you know, this might inspire other people to you know, to reinvent their life, I think just getting out there and doing something instead of sitting at home and watching Netflix when you retire is a good thing. Find your passion, get out there and do it. And for me, that was acting. That was, you know, writing the play, doing the acting. So I wrote a book about why this was a thing for me, and it's a book that's meant to grow as I continue the tour. I mean, I've written the book now. And now here I am at Adelaide. I have yet to do a performance. That's happening tonight, actually. And I'm going to be performing it for the first time at the Fringe. I will be, and so the book will continue to grow as I finish Adelaide, as I do the New York City Fringe, as I go to the Montreal Fringe, and then to the Edinburgh Fringe. So it's you know, it's a good feeling to say, I wrote a book, or I wrote a film, or I wrote a play. The film I wrote was a 20-minute film. The first play that I wrote was a 10-minute play. But it doesn't have to be, you know, a full 2-hour film or a full, 2-hour play. It can be something short. It could be something that nobody else ever sees. But just, be creative. Like Caesar said, just pick up your camera and, whatever your passion is, whatever you think. I've never painted. Well, go take a painting class, or, just dabble at home. Do something that makes you see the world in a different way. I always thought photography. Never too late. Yeah. And photography is amazing because it forces you to see the world in a different way. And so even if you're an amateur photographer, you take your iPhone, your cell phone, you're taking pictures, it forces you to see the world in a different way. And that, I think, is, like Barbara said, put your adventure hat on and have an adventure as you're walking around your community. It'll make you see it in a different way.
Speaking of seeing things in a different way and along those lines, what is something, you're in Australia now, and I don't know if this is your first visit there and everything like that, but what is something that has caught your attention about Australia? Because Pod TV is a global network. Like I said, Shaquille was and I think he still is, a dog racer and a hedge fund investor, and he's one of our, he was regular, now he's like semi-regular panelist on our news show and everything like that, and I think he's from the Sydney area. But what's something that you have found fascinating about your visit to Australia?
Well, I don't know if it's fascinating, but I am really good at directions. I never get lost. But I find that I'm here in Adelaide because I'm south of the equator, I can't figure out the direct. I get lost because I don't know whether it's just the sun thing or you know what, but I just, you know, it seems to be. And I was talking to a friend of mine here, and he was like, yeah, that happens. You know, so it's just interesting that, you know, just, you know, coming south of the equator can totally throw off your, you know, my geolocating, you know, so, you know, maybe I'll pick it up. I'm here for a whole month, so maybe I'll pick it up within that time frame. But right now, I'm just, you're walking around the city to get to know it, get lost. So.
Yeah, I said, hey, Caesar, what's something about both California and New York that our global audience might find interesting that you had to learn when you were in those individual places? Like I said, you were in California, now you're here in North Carolina. I don't know what other places you've lived at and everything like that, but what are some of the things that have fascinated you about those two states that I know that you are from or have lived in?
So California, to me, I think it's just a beautiful state. You know, the beaches, to, you know, the mountains, the desert out there. One thing that is different for sure is people are a lot friendly out here in North Carolina. They're a lot more friendlier for sure. You know, when I first moved out here, one thing that really caught my attention was, you know, people waving at me. You know, that's really something that I wasn't used to in California. You know, as I'm driving by, someone's waving hi to me, you know, and I'm like, oh, wow, hi, you know, and that was something that amazed me, you know, because that's something that you definitely don't see in California for sure. You know, I think they'll think that you're weird or something for doing that, you know. But another thing too is I believe morals are a lot higher in North Carolina because like I said, I've been doing this retail loss prevention for about 15 years now. So in California, theft out there was, I mean, crazy, right? And coming to North Carolina, the theft is not the same as what it was in California. So that's kind of things that kind of taught me that I'm in two drastically different places, you know. Culturally, for sure, 100% culturally different. You know, it's just, I never really thought that I would picture myself out here on the East Coast, you know, and I'm kind of glad that I did because it opened up so many opportunities for me.
Sounds good. Hey, Barbara, I know you mentioned having that New York Northeastern kind of connection. I think I heard Long Island and a couple of other places as well. I'm actually of the opinion that New Yorkers sometimes get a bad rap because I have actually been told that I sometimes have a New York style spirit. I remember that one time when I visited New York. Part of that is because of my love of culture. And of course, New York is one of the cultural capitals of the world in addition to California and everything like that. I do find it is easier to get by without a car in New York than it is from what my friends tell me in California, because y'all do have a good subway system and other things along those lines and everything like that. But I was just wondering, I sometimes think that New York gets a bad rap because many of my friends that I met from New York are friendly like the folks from the South. Maybe not as friendly, but I think that sometimes New York gets a bad rap because there are people that are thinking that it's all cold and rush. And I'm not saying that there's not the Wall Street rush atmosphere, but I do think that New Yorkers are more friendly than they are given credit for, from my experience. But I just wondered, is that a misread on my part, or do you think that get a bad rap?
I think, first of all, I'm going to end up saying, so I'm in upstate New York. I live about 5 hours away from New York City. So, but as soon as you say you're from New York, everybody, thinks you're from New York City, which is fine. But I will tell you that I think that so many times, like when we go to France, people will say to me, why are you going to France? French people hate Americans. And I'm going like, I think the French people loved us. It's the way you treat people.
Right.
It's the reciprocal. It's that empathy.
Mhm.
So I think anybody, and we're thinking about going to Portugal, and Frank wants to go to Madrid, and another friend of ours wanted to go. He goes, "You don't want to go to Madrid. They're going to spit on you." And so I asked the travel agency, and I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Oh no, Barb, we wouldn't do." And I'm going like, so I think it's a perception, but the reality is how you treat people is how you're going to be treated. So, and that's an eyes wide open. So that's my thought on that.
No, I agree with you on that. Actually, the founder that I mentioned a couple of times on this show, Nick, he and his wife, and I think the dog, when they had the dog, unfortunately, the dog did not like the move. So then it was a frail dog in the first place, but their dog did pass away. Just Nick and his wife living in Madrid, and they love Spain. Every time he comes on the news show, which we do in the morning, he oftentimes talks about how much he loves Spain, and he has not had any problems with Spain at all. So he actually has enjoyed it, and I think they've been there almost a year and a half, 2 years now, and everything like that. So I agree with you that a lot of times the perceptions are not what people expect. Two questions, and one that I ask everybody as we wrap up the show and everything. The other one I just thought of, and all along those lines, even though I've asked it on some other shows. I'll start with you, Caesar, and go round robin and everything like that. And then I'll also get to the last question I ask everybody on this show, because it's kind of a personal mission of mine and everything. But before we get to the personal mission question, is what's something that people would find that as they've been listening to this show, a hobby or an interest that you have that people would be surprised to know that you have? That's the question that popped in my head. So, Caesar, what's a hobby or an interest that you have that people would be surprised to know that it is an interest of yours?
Oh man, toy photography.
So is that like taking pictures of toys?
Yeah, so it's I used to, I haven't done it in a while, but it was a hobby of mine where I would set up action figures and make these elaborate scenes and take photos of it, and it actually got recognized by some toy companies that actually featured some of my work in their platform. So, you know, it actually was pretty something that I was pretty proud of. So,
photography, that would be something different. Like, speaking of that, one of the other shows on this network, I've actually got to record her show tomorrow and everything like that. But she had a similar moment. She went viral, and the reason she went viral is because she had a Bath and Body Works kind of outfit on. So apparently her outfit looked like the color scheme of Bath and Body Works. So she's a teacher in the DC, Maryland area. So her student was picking on her, and she posted that. She said, "Can you say what you just said about me looking like the Bath and Body Works model?" And everything like that. So as soon as she did that, it went viral. And I think she said she got like 100,000 or something hits because of that whole note going viral just off of something with her I'm not even sure if it was her direct student, but a student at her school said about her looking like the Bath and Body Works model. And I think Bath and Body Works even got in touch with her, to your point about the toys and everything like that.
Wow,
so,
that's
funny.
Yeah.
Because a student was cracking on her to some degree and everything like that. Or what's an interesting hobby that you have, or some interest that you have that folks would be shocked to know about you?
I don't know. You know, so we were talking about, you know, exploring things. And I wanted to tell you at different points in time in my life, I like to try things. I learned to play the cello, and I paint, do watercolor, and I also love to do pottery. So I throw on the wheels. So, and again, it's just exploring things and seeing if I can do it, if I can try it, and if I can be successful about it.
Yeah,
and I love it.
Yeah. What about you, Paul? What's an interest that you have? Maybe you like to go skydiving, even though I think that planes are meant to go from point A to point B and not to fall out of. But that's just me.
No, what came to mind was my grandfather. He always wanted to open up a coin shop, so he had tons of coins. And we lived with my grandfather for a while, and I learned. So I became very interested in collecting coins. He was a numismatist, which is a fancy word for a coin collector. And collecting coins over the years has been a hobby of mine, and so I'm
That sounds good. That's
collecting
interesting.
coins.
Yeah, I used to try to collect coins, and I used to try to collect stamps back in the day and everything. Didn't really have much of success in that. Even had an ant farm back in the day as well when I was a kid. All along those lines. And I do remember having some train sets, even though I'm of the opinion, and I don't know how you parents feel about it and everything, but I'm not sure that train sets are for the kids, because when this was like now, but I remember my dad, who hopefully Caesar will be meeting at some point or another if he hasn't already, and everything like that. But I think that he played with the train more than I did, because like I said, me and my younger brother, who's 7 years younger than me, so he's in his late 50s. We had a train set, but I think Jim might have played with the train more than we did. But that's just my opinion. And all of those argue with me.
To reassure you on that, Gibsonville, the town that I live in, they have their own giant little mini train station track where you can come with your own train and control it through their own little city, own little cool. Yeah, it's great, it's awesome. But it's mostly adults who are there.
Mostly adults who are doing the train thing.
Yeah.
I think he was from Omaha, or one of the places in the Midwest and everything like that. He was a big train collector and everything like that. I think he also had was on the spectrum. So that was one of the things, sometimes people on the spectrum will be good at statistics and good at hobbies. And that's one of the things that was his interest and everything like that. As we wrap up, the question I get everybody to answer, and this is wrap up, and then we'll go out with a video about a education award that comes out of Oklahoma, and I'll do that after we're getting this question. But I'll start with you, Paul, and go the other way, and everything like that is tell folks your message of positivity, and also how they can reach you and how they can get in contact with you if they're interested and they've been fascinated by this conversation and would like to get further in touch with you and all along those lines. But I have done it with all my guests. I try to give a message of positivity. So if you want to share your message of positivity, I'm sure folks would love to hear it.
Well, I mean, not to steal the thing from Nike, but I would just say, just do it. Be right. Encourage and embrace failure. I mean, look at Einstein in inventing the light bulb. He doesn't look at the fact that he failed thousands of times. He looks at the one time that he was successful in creating an element that produced the light. So embrace failure. So and failure, it automatically is like negative. It's like, well, say a word about positive things. Well, if you embrace failure, then you're looking at the positive aspect of it. It's an opportunity to grow through that process. But and what was the other part of that?
How you can be reached and how you can be contacted if folks have been fascinated by your part of the conversation.
So the best thing, so it says on the, it says the last audition, but I do have a website, lastaudition.com. So leave out just lastaudition.com. It's got all my information about my tour, but it also has contacts, social media, newsletter, all of that is on that one website, lastaudition.com.
And we look forward to hearing how you do in Edinburgh, one of the shows that we don't have anymore, even though I'm going to try to reach Jeff and have him come back. He actually went to Edinburgh, I think, a couple of times, but he is a comedian, sometimes on the different side of the political spectrum than mine and everything like that. And I think he's still on Rumble, but he was on this network. But I think he was at Edinburgh either last year or the year before and everything like that. So I've been seeing some more of the works from Edinburgh, and you are right, it is one of the most fascinating fringe festivals that exists out there and everything like that. So I've definitely been following them because of him and other folks that I know in the theater world. Barb, tell us how you can be reached and your message of positivity that you want to share with this global audience.
Okay, I can be reached. I have a website. It's called barbstone.me. Find me there, sign up for my newsletter, or best place, I obviously am on Facebook, but the best place to get in touch with me would also be on LinkedIn, and it's under Barb Stone. And the one thing that I just want to leave, the positivity, is that, again, life is to be drooled over. We need to savor all the moments that we have in our life, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, where there's all learning. So life is to be drooled over, and drool means to savor. When a dog drools, it's because they've got the anticipation of something good that they're going to have. So drool over your life.
That makes a lot of sense. What about you, Caesar? Because I'm glad that Wendy put us in touch and all along those lines, and hopefully you'll get a chance to come on some of these other shows as well. But definitely I've learned a lot about you, and hopefully we'll be learning more and all along those lines. But what advice would you give to folks?
Just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid and get out and do it. You're not gonna grow unless you go out and do it. You're not gonna learn unless you go out and do it. So just get up and do it, and that's it. You can reach me at my Instagram at Seize the Moments. It's CEEZE the Moments. So you can reach me there or at my Facebook, Caesar Molina.
Well, I appreciate it. And all along those lines, like I said, getting ready to go out with this education video and all in that space. If anybody has any words, because this is actually a celebration of both educators, but also the support staff, because I know that part of the reason this gentleman from Oklahoma created this award is because he recognized that sometimes the cafeteria workers, the guidance counselor, and even that support staff, even the janitor, can be very important as well. So if y'all have any personal stories that you want to share about the importance of education before I play this video, and then that'll be absolutely the last thing and everything, I'll love to hear your thoughts, because my grandmother on my dad's side created the first Black library in Raleigh, and my grandmother on mom's side was a cafeteria worker. And I remember going there and enjoying those fine cooked meals from her as a cafeteria worker. And all along those, of course, I was also had a coach, because there's another video that I sometimes play about the importance of teachers and coaches and everything like that. But I had y'all will love this. I had a great system of why they picked the team for my track team and everything like that. And we won 3 out of 4 years that I was there, because you could run in your senior year of junior high, because we had a 3-year high school and everything like that. But we lost my senior year because I decided to recruit somebody that I could beat, because I got tired of losing, because the way that you got picked on the team was they ran you, and they ran you. If you survived, you were on the team. So that's how they picked the team. And if you survived the team, you were on. If you survived, you were on the team. So I did manage to survive, even though I was like Charlie Brown. I lost every race that I ever ran until I recruited somebody that I could beat. And technically, I still lost those races, but I did have somebody I could beat. Unfortunately, he passed away. So any thoughts that y'all have about teachers before I get ready to get us all out of here? And I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully, I'll have all 3 of you back at some point or another on this show or other shows that are part of 5 TV.
I'm excited. Thank you for inviting me to be on.
Yeah, no problem. Any thoughts about teachers really quickly before I play this video and get us out of here?
Well, Mark, one of the things you ended up nailing on the head, and I love this, it doesn't matter what position you are in life. Your presence is so important. And you talked about being the janitor or being whatever. It doesn't matter. So we are all, you can learn from that. We are all teachers. We are all creative beings. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's so important.
No problem at all. You ready to play the video? Paul, any thoughts about teachers before I play this video and get us on out of here?
Just what I thought with that is the, I mentioned caregivers with dementia. Whether you're a janitor or the cafeteria worker or teachers, they're all underpaid. They're all underappreciated, just like the caregivers. They're the caregivers that put us through and help us through our earlier years in education. And they're so important. So learn their names, say hello to them, be kind to them. Because they're there, because they love what they do, and they love, they love the kids that they see pass through. So
and they deserve more, 100%.
Oh gosh, so much more.
They definitely deserve a lot more, just like the hospital workers, and even I would argue the folks in fast food deserve more as well, because I've definitely had friends that have been involved in that Fight for 15 campaign and all along those lines. So there's a lot of people that are way underpaid that deserve more. But right now we're going to play this commercial, get us on out of here. But it's been a fun conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed having all 3 of you on, and I hope to see you all back in the near future. Peace.
Will do.
Thanks for having us.
Right.
Thank you for doing this.
No problem.
Yeah, yeah. won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop, non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you, I thank you, for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.
I won't fold,